Welcome to Mission Critical, Sale-Leaseback podcast by Ascension, the world's #1 sale-leaseback show. We share the latest in sale-leaseback advice from the best in the game to keep you at the cutting edge of the hottest emerging practices in corporate real estate. I'm your host, Tom Jonsson.
We talking sale-leaseback. Yeah, you ready?
Yes. This is Mission Critical, a podcast by Ascension. I'm Tom Jonsson, and thank you for joining us. Today, I'm here with Logan Carbonari.
You got that?
Logan is a senior associate here at Ascension that focuses in the convenience and gas station sale-leaseback space. Logan originally actually found success in New York City, working in software sales, and later in Oklahoma, of all places, working in food processing equipment manufacturing. Holds a business degree from BU with a concentration in marketing and law, and he lives in LA with his wife and newborn. Logan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Excited to be here.
Awesome. It's great to see you. So let's just kind of jump into it right away. I mean, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. I speak to a lot of real estate professionals. A lot of people say, I sell all retail. I sell office buildings. I sell apartments. You really have seemed to have found a niche in real estate, and it's a really unique market, and it's in the gas station space. So, tell me how you fell into this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably just your typical combination of like hard work and good timing, right? Always was focused on sale-leasebacks while we were here at Ascension, was at a conference, one of the many conferences we visit where there's private equity and investment banks and operators. Had a great conversation with an investment bank who was working with, a operator who was just getting started in, growing and expanding and wanted to leverage sale-leasebacks to do that. And it just happened to be a really serendipitous kind of meeting and timing. And so it's been about 2.5, 3 years where I've been working with this particular operator, and it's really kind of engulfed me in this kind of gas station C-store space. And I've found success there and I enjoy it. And, that's really what I've been focused on for the last couple of years.
So what is it that you enjoy about it? Why do you like this specific space so much? What's fun about it to you?
Well, I think that it's very fast paced, right? So there's been massive, roll-up strategies in this particular space where the gas station market and C-store market is interesting in that there's about 150,000 of these C-stores in the United States, of which like 60% of them are just independent mom and pop. So if you're a well-financed, opportunistic business person, that's a big opportunity, right? There's a massive, fragmentation in the market. So, the speed at which this is happening is very exciting, right? The phone's always ringing. There's always opportunities. There's always deals to happen. So I really enjoy that. And then I think there's an interesting piece from the investor side, which we'll probably touch on later, around tax benefits related to this kind of investment. And I always find it like rewarding to be able to share, knowledge that folks maybe don't necessarily know about, but that's incredibly valuable to their business or their plan or their wealth building strategy or what it might be. So yeah, it's been a really interesting ride.
So let's go back to the first part you spoke about. It's fragmented, 150 some odd businesses in the US. I think you said 60,000 kind of more mom and pops.
60% of the 150,000. So you call it like 95,000 or so.
Are the mom and pops.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the fragmentation and what those particular groups are doing, or maybe like what they should be doing or what they should be thinking about, right? Like, let's break it down. We've got the mom and pops, like what's affecting them? What are they doing? What should they be doing right now? What should they be at least thinking about, right?
Well, the mom and pops are interesting, right? Because at the end of the day, like they're just small business owners, right? So maybe they own one gas station, 2 or 3, in their community. It's making them enough money. They're putting food on the table. They're living, a decent life. Vast majority of those folks are immigrants that have come to the United States for a better life and have found opportunity in this space. And so, I think that there's 2 really avenues, right? It's one, continue to do it, right? It's a great business. It provides a healthy lifestyle. And so just keep your head down and keep running that direction. Very entrepreneurial. There's clearly a lot of opportunity, right? Either to say, hey, I've been doing this for 30 or 40 years. I'm tired. I've got grandkids. I want to sell. And there's a lot of opportunity to do that. Or, right, I want the next phase. I want to be more aggressive. And so a lot of these, C-store operators that are growing, they're looking for partners, right? Because not every gas company has their own corporate employees that are running the stores day to day, right? So if you think about like the Wawas and the Sheets of the world, the folks behind the counter, they're employees for Wawa and Sheets. But you have a whole nother section of these gas station C-store operators where they have dealers or sub-operators or folks running the stores. And so they're always looking for experienced, operators to say, hey, look, we have a portfolio of 20 sites in the Wisconsin market. We really need someone experienced to go run this. And you can go do that. And so I think there's a few different ways you can go, but both are really great options depending on, where you're at in your life and what you're looking to achieve.
And I think part of that kind of dovetails into, all right, you're the 20 unit operator, you're looking for some partnership, you're looking for some experience. That kind of leads into the other 35, 40% in the space, which is more the institutional private equity type, professional investor space. So what is their strategy or what are their concerns?
I mean, they're just focused on growth, right? Like every other private equity firm that's looking at a roll-up strategy, they're looking at how can we, grow through acquisition, in certain circumstances also grow through development, but acquisition is the key for them, right? So identifying markets where they can, land and expand, have a heavy concentration, dominate a marketplace, and then kind of rinse and repeat. And so, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, obviously. And, while the demand for this kind of real estate is there as well, it provides some unique ways for them to go about financing that growth as well. So
when I think of gas stations, and I think, look, maybe this stepping back, like whether you're a private equity investor, an institutional investor, or the mom and pops that runs one or two spaces, like the one thing you can't do is sit on your hands and not do anything and close your eyes and not be aware of what's going on just overall in the industry.
Sure.
Me not knowing the business, I think of like electric vehicles, I think of labor costs, I think of inflation.
Sure.
There's a lot of headwinds that I guess, especially for the mom and pops, that if they're not really actively managing their portfolio, they could get really caught in a bad position, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a common piece of feedback that you get when you talk to investors, right? Especially if you're talking to folks that are, living in the coasts, right? Where maybe things are a little bit more progressive when it comes to EVs versus the folks that are living in, the middle of the country where, I'm in LA, right? Every other car feels like a Tesla, which is insane, right? But if you go to other parts of the country, it's not like that, right? So I think my viewpoint and our viewpoint is maybe a little bit slanted. But that being said, I think you'd be silly to not recognize that this is coming. And so I think what you'll see and what you've seen is, gas stations start to really invest in the C-store component, right? So have really great food offerings, coffee offerings, things to help bring people in. And then adding some, chargers to their locations where it makes sense, right? Because I figure if you're going to go charge, ideally you want to go somewhere where you can spend 15, 20, 30 minutes and, there's something there for you, right? A good snack, something broader than the traditional, aisle of candy that you would typically see at, your normal corner store.
So I'm going to toss you a softball since this is traditionally this is a sale-leaseback podcast. So I'm a small mom and pops operator. I want to do some of those add-ons, right? How do I fund it? Logan, interest rates are 8%. Like, what am I going to do to fund that?
Yeah. Sale-Leaseback is obviously a really incredible way to raise capital right now. And again, basically for real estate investors right now, gas stations and C-stores provide this bonus depreciation benefit, which, effectively allows an investor to take, it was 100%, but now 80% depreciation in year one. And so what that's done is drive cap rates down, right? They've compressed. So, even small operators with smaller credit are seeing really aggressive pricing because of this tax benefit. And so, a sale-leaseback is a really interesting way and unique way to raise capital so you can make those investments back into your business so that you can address some of these headwinds that you've, mentioned.
Perfect segue again into another topic, which was, I think, the other big thing we want to talk about here is the benefits of owning the gas station as it relates to the depreciation, the bonus depreciation,
right,
and all of those tax codes that were implemented a few years ago. Let's kind of dive into that, and we're not here giving tax advice, right?
Disclaimer: not an accountant, not a CPA, right?
So just give me the gist of how this works and why this is attractive.
Yeah. So effectively, 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. In that there was some language related to bonus depreciation. And so they carved out a couple of asset classes, gas stations and car washes, and said, look, if you invest in one of these assets, you can take bonus depreciation. So from 2017 until the end of 2022, or January 1st, 2023, effectively, it was 100% in year one. So, easy numbers, you bought $1 million gas station, you allocate a little bit for land, let's say 20%. So you have $800,000. You could effectively write off the $800,000 in year one. So obviously for high net worth individuals with a lot of passive income looking to offset that income, this was a massive opportunity, tax strategy, wealth protection strategy, et cetera. That law has essentially a sunset built into it, right? So this year it's dropped to 80% depreciation, and it will drop 20% thereafter until it expires in 2026, end of 2026, assuming Congress doesn't step in and decides to renew it or something along those lines. So yeah, so you can imagine, right? You have a tax problem and you're looking for creative ways to solve it. This is a really interesting, strategy, and one that we've seen people get really excited about and get really aggressive about.
So I think we saw just overall in the commercial real estate industry, and I don't remember the exact percentages, but I think everybody would say, Q4 transaction volume probably dropped, 50% among a lot of product types. What did you see like in your space, in the gas station space? Because of these benefits that you just mentioned, I got to imagine it was a little bit less, maybe a lot less, right?
I don't recommend doing closings on the 30th of December, but a lot of that basically was happening because, look, we'll have conversations with people all year and say, hey, look, this is a benefit, so on and so forth. And I think most people by the summer-ish kind of know what the year is going to look like. And those folks got ahead of it and it was great. But then you had a lot of people that started calling us in November, December 1st, being like, what can I get done before the end of the year? And so, there's a lot of creative ways to close, seller financing, things like that. But there was definitely not a slowdown, right? The benefit's too good. There's too many people looking to do it. And yeah, it was frankly a whirlwind. I mean, I was in Australia on vacation and the time change was out of control, but I was trying to get stuff done on that Friday, which we were able to do. But no, we did not see a downturn in Q4 for us in this particular asset class.
Very cool. That's good to hear. And I think it'll probably be the same somewhat this year. I mean, it's not 100%.
It's still
80% ain't too shabby.
Yeah, it's still
either,
really
right?
great. I mean, relative to, the alternative, which is to do a cost segregation study, it's still a significantly higher benefit and also doesn't require you to do a cost segregation study, right? Which also costs money.
And the leverage part is key. You buy the $1 million gas station, let's say you allocate 20% to land, so you got 80% to the improvements. You get the $800,000 write-off. Well, you did it last year, at least when it was 100%.
Yeah.
You weren't coming out of pocket $800,000. You were coming out of pocket 25, 35%, or maybe even less when you got the seller financing, right?
Exactly. I mean, the typical kind of leverage we're seeing is 65 to 70% on these kinds of deals, but obviously it depends on the investor and the guarantor and things like that and the cash flow.
So kind of parting thoughts. Is there any, anything that you think is going to change in the future? Or I guess, what do you think maybe aside from what we covered, the future holds for this industry?
Yeah, look, I think we'll continue to see a lot of the same trends we've seen, right? Like we just talked about, I think that the benefit from a tax perspective for investors is still really strong. So I don't really see, a drop in demand. I think that obviously with interest rates where they are, I think it requires the operators to reassess, right? A lot of the operators were getting under contract to buy these deals, underwriting with a different idea of where their exit could be. And I think they need to come to reality that, mid sixes, high sixes really aren't the thing anymore, right? It's probably more like high sevens, close to 8 caps. And so, maybe the margins are a little thinner. As long as they're, underwriting appropriately on some of these new things, I think they'll find opportunity to leverage the sale-leaseback, to finance their acquisition. So we'll still see a lot of growth there. And then, yeah, just from the, the broader business, like I said, I think that there are folks that are going to start innovating about providing more, opportunities for customers at the location, adding, chargers where it makes sense in regions where it makes sense. But at the end of the day, gas is pretty inelastic. Even when gas prices were outrageous last year, gas stations were doing really well. People still needed to get to work. People still wanted to go, need to go to the grocery store. So I think it's an industry that's still got a lot of runway and, excited to be a part of it, obviously.
Perfect. Well, thanks for being on the show. My last question would be, how many gas stations do you need to sell in 2023 to where you and your wife plan on having that second baby, right?
50.
You already got your
50's
hands
the
full with the
number.
first one, right?
Yeah, 50 is the number. I think 50 will make it work. I don't think I have a choice. I got to sell the gas stations regardless. Like the time's going to come knocking and she's going to be like, it's time. I don't care how many gas stations you sold, but it would definitely be easier if I could sell a little bit more, no doubt.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, Logan. Appreciate you being on the show. Lots of great insight and look forward to seeing you soon in LA.
Sounds great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks again. Thank you. Mission Critical, a Sale-Leaseback podcast by Ascension. To find out more about Ascension and how we can help you achieve a higher standard of real estate advisory, visit www.higherascension.com. And then make sure to search for Mission Critical in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found.
We talking Sale-Leaseback.